Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the starting nine. Martino Puccio, Mike Phillips, alongside you guys as we get ready and prep to discuss the World Baseball Classic, which kicks off in 2 days. We're going to be going through each group, pool rather, and then go through some of the odds for some of these groups, and then the latest news around Major League Baseball regarding Jurickson Profar. But Mike, first and foremost, how are you doing?
Pretty good. I made it clear it's not my favorite tournament, but for the sake of the listeners, we'll discuss it.
Yes, of course. We're finally, or hopefully, the last day of snow up here in the Northeast, so we could really get into spring. Uh, Listen, World Baseball Classic. I think the idea of the tournament in itself is a nice and fun thing to do, but as you mentioned last episode, it's not necessarily something that you want to see played at this time of the year. So again, we're going to be going over the entire tournament in itself, go through all the pools of the teams that will be playing in it. So, Mike, we're going to start off with Pool A. In Pool A, we have Canada, Colombia, Cuba, Panama, Puerto Rico. Some talented teams in here with players that we know about and some that we don't. What are your initial thoughts on this group? Is there a clear winner to you here? I think uh, based off of just historical stuff and roster wise, I think three teams have the potential to win in this group. So yeah, where do you want to go there to start off?
Yeah, this group's definitely the most interesting group in terms of potential winners here. Because I'm looking at some of the odds, like I'm on DraftKings, my reference here. You got four teams like plus 700 or better get out of the group, including traditional baseball powerhouses like Puerto Rico and Cuba. Colombia has a good talent group here. They seem to group this regionally here, and you feel for Puerto Rico because they're hosting this pod and they're the one who got decimated by the insurance situation where you don't have Lindor, you don't have Correa, you don't have Javi Baez. That's kind of steroid related. So that's a little different, but as you can see, they can hold serve with the home field there.
Yeah. So just to go through some of the odds here as well for people, pool winner, right? So we'll
Yeah.
start off Puerto Rico's minus 110, Canada plus 330, Colombia plus 500, Cuba plus 700, Panama at plus 1100. We see our good friend Ruben Tejada on that squad
Yeah.
that we were discussing earlier today. Is it simple for you? Puerto Rico or nobody? But in terms of betting odds, I think you have to play the field here. Minus 110 is not really something that I kind of would mess around with, unless you're that confident in Puerto Rico. Knowing baseball and how games work, I don't think they're great odds, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't love that, especially when you consider they have some star power missing here. They do have some of their big names. They have obviously Edwin Diaz is back after he hurt his knee the last WBC. They have a lot former Met Seth Lugo in the rotation, who's been good for the Royals. They have Nolan Arenado still there. The guy who interested me in this group of this roster here is I think the fact that all their shortstops appear that Edwin Arroyo is one of the Reds' top prospects, is now the shortstop for Puerto Rico. So that'll be a fun spot for him.
Yeah, it's good exposure, higher pressure situation, I guess you could say, right? Regarding like the overall situation with him and not really making his debut just yet. Yeah, I just look up and down on this roster and I kind of see like a good amount of good players, but also not the traditional powerhouse that we're used to with Puerto Rico. I'm kind of off on them. I do think like listen, Cuba's an interesting one where I'm lying here because we know there's familiar names, but Cuba's historically one of the most unique, or probably is the most unique country to play this sport, considering their political history and everything that's gone on over there. We've seen some studs break out in this tournament from Cuba. I am kind of just going off. This is a historical thing. Who knows? I think at like a plus 700, I believe it was, for them to just win the group is something that I would absolutely entice. Plus 230 to just even qualify to the next round. For me, if we're talking about betting here, I would run with Cuba. Is there a team outside of that, or do you agree with Cuba that you would say, hey, yeah, that is one of the non-favorites that I would bet on?
Yeah, Cuba is interesting because they have, so many of they're mixing a couple of guys who defected are playing in the US and Juan Moncada's on the roster. That's something they've done in the past. I think it's
Mhm.
something really intriguing here. I think Canada is a little sleeper-ish in this group, even though they don't have some of the bigger names. They have a couple of big prospects. You got Owen Casey there. There's a big return in the Edward Cabrera trade. Lopez and the Marlins is there. The Naylor brothers, and they have some decent pitching. So Canada, I think, is a sleeper in this group.
Yeah, Canada really produces young top players. If Tyler O'Neill is healthy, That's still like a power bat. Bo Naylor being an option as well. The pitching, when I look up and down this roster here, pretty respectable. I mean, we see a name like what's it? Where I was just looking at it, James Paxton, who we
Yeah.
know if and when he's healthy, which is very rare in his career, he's able to make an impact. But ultimately, I see that happening. The odds makers do like Colombia, Mike. So I'll just give a quick rundown through Colombia's roster or highlight some of the names that we could know of, right? Jose Quintana is one of them. Julio Teheran, who we obviously know had a nice little career in Major League Baseball. Gio Urshela. We have, and then just a bunch of other names that I'm not too familiar with, but at the same time, this is just kind of when you never know what's going to happen in baseball. But if you were to have to pick two teams to qualify from this group and a winner, what would you have?
Like I would probably go. I think I'm worried about the Puerto Rican like depletion with all the talent that they lost in the insurance like fiascos here. Like I don't love the pitching stat that they have. I would probably
Hmm.
go Cuba, Canada would be my hunch off the top of my head.
Cuba, Canada, and that's Cuba first to win the group or just qualify?
Like I don't know who my winner is out of this group. I think if you're
Okay,
wanting to bet, you'd probably bet Cuba because the odds are better. But
right.
like I think Canada will get out of this group. I'm very confident in that.
I am going to go with Cuba winning this. I think this is just the best in terms of odds. I think this group's wide open as far as talent is on paper. And we know with the limited amount of baseball games that are played, you just don't know what's going to happen. So yeah, I have them out of there. Do you want to head on to Pool B, or you have something on Pool A that you want to discuss before we move?
I think we can go to Pool B.
Okay, so Pool B can be based in Houston, Brazil, Great Britain, Italy, Mexico, USA. So let's start off with some of the other teams involved in here before we get to the United States, because we are obviously going to be very well versed in that. Listen, Brazil being in this tournament, that's awesome. I welcome that. I think that's a lot of fun. Mexico, traditionally the second best country here in terms of producing talent. There's like no argument in terms of that. Italy is really just kind of based on people who are like you and myself that were not born there but have an allegiance to the country. Francisco Cervelli is a manager for that team. We got Pasquantino, Nick Morabito, who's on the New York Mets farm system, Jack Caglione, obviously the top prospect over in Kansas City is one of those players. John Birdie, another name that we're familiar with as well. Listen, pretty underrated talent wise. You got Ottavino, Lorenzen, Aaronola pitching. It's really not bad. It's a respectable side. Um, but for me, I think just kind of going through that, I think they are definitely a threat to advance the next round. I wouldn't be surprised by it. Is Mexico on your radar? Is anyone else within the group as well? Because Mexico has obviously got some talent here on this squad.
Yeah, Mexico's got talent. Mexico has like some good, some like a lot of guys who have ability to, like wreck a game offensively. Obviously, Randy Rosarena, a big deal there playing for Mexico. Duran, who from the Red Sox, you got Luis Arias, Joey Meneses, like who has had his moments in the big leagues. Like they have a lot of, they have a capable lineup of going deep in here. The pitching, not as crazy about, but they do have a good bullpen with Andres Munoz and Victor Vodnik in the back.
Yeah. And again, for some people to kind of recognize this, and this is something that you mentioned and why you don't like the tournament, is that you can't really kind of view it under a lens of like Major League Baseball or how even the postseason goes, because guys are not going to be stretched out for a lot of innings in these games. So the bullpen, you could argue, could be more valuable in terms of, that just obviously USA is the overwhelming favorite to win in this group. They are around minus 650 to advance from the pool is minus 7,000. We could just hop right into Team USA here. They're
Yeah.
loaded. They've been recruiting for this. They want to go and win this one. Obviously, a bad taste in their mouth after Shohei Ohtani struck out Mike Trout to win the last World Baseball Classic. They're coming out for blood, and I love and respect what Mark DeRosa has done with that. We spoke a little bit about how Skubal and Skeens are going to be limiting themselves. Logan Webb will be starting the first game for Team USA. How do you like their chances, not only in this group, but just the rest of the tournament, which we will get into a little bit later and expanded wise?
Well, if they don't win this group, it's a problem because they are clearly the best team with a 5. So that's something you keep in mind here right now. Like the weakest for USA will always be starting pitching because like American pitchers have traditionally been the slowest to buy into this tournament because it interferes with their spring training resumes. I mean, And great, you got Pool Skeens there for the whole thing. Skubal, my feelings on there, but he's
Mhm.
there. He gives you a game, you're gonna win. That's pretty good. Logan Webb, obviously, innings guy you love. They do have interesting strategy. Mark DeRosa has talked about that they're going to try and I think in 2023, right, the problems where they're sort of running out of pitching because of the rules and what teams want. They've brought a lot of guys sort of piggyback their starters. So like we've seen Clay Holmes could be in a piggyback role for them. Ryan Yarborough who was injury replacement for Joe
Right.
Ryan. Michael Waka might be in that spot. Like Matthew Boyd. Like they give themselves options here. Like they can go back to back starting pitchers in some of these games to account for the lack of buildup these guys have.
Yeah, exactly. But the talent just like up front is just so mesmerizing because Logan Webb is, I think, in my opinion, probably the most underappreciated pitcher in baseball in terms of conversations of the top dogs. I think he's easily top 10. And he's going to be starting in that one. Some of the news as well regarding Nolan McLean has experienced a bit of vertigo because of an ear infection. He says he has no more symptoms. He's going to be able to go for that. And DeRosa did mention that if they were to get that far, he would start in the final. What are your kind of concerns with Nolan McLean there, or maybe it was just a hiccup over the weekend that's now resolved itself?
Sounds like it's a hiccup over the weekend. The one thing you don't love is that like he apparently has said he lost 5 pounds as a result of this infection, which is something like you want him to get
Crazy
healthy.
amount.
Not like 5 pounds in like a week is like a week or so is a lot. And to see him try and get better while pitching in the WBC, not great if you're a Met fan, but like for him, if as long as he's feeling good, he's throwing down in Port St. Lucie tomorrow and to see if he's good to go. Like Noel McLean being up there in the rotation in some of these again, like in this tournament is gonna be fun because like seeing like what he can do with his crazy picks Mitch on the international stage will be exciting.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be global like that. Okay. So, Mike, instead of really discussing a Pool B winner, I think anywhere between the qualifiers and the two teams that you could pick or just the exact finishes are very interesting to me. If you were to go USA Mexico, in that order, it's minus 120, and then USA Italy is plus 250. All the other options regarding Great Britain, Brazil, I mean, listen, no
Great.
disrespect to those two,
Yeah,
but
right. They're kind of just happy to be there at this point.
right? I agree with that. Do you actually see a scenario in which, by the way, Team USA does not win this group?
No, it would take like something catastrophic to lose this group.
Okay, so then that just kind of leads me to the final question regarding this group: Mexico or Italy? If you were to have to pick of the two, or you might go crazy here and say Great Britain or Brazil.
I mean, Great Britain. I mean, shout out to Jazz Chisholm for playing for Great Britain, but like he's basically the cleanup hitter on like a not great team. So that like you gotta throw them out here. I think the thing I'm watching for here was like I think like whoever wins that Italy Mexico game is probably going through. And I
Mhm.
do think it's curious like who Italy will have lined up for that game because Italy's pitching is sneaky good.
Right.
Mexico
Yeah.
Mexico is like I said, like back end heavy with the bullpen. You don't love their starters in terms of like who Mexico's throwing out there starting pitching wise. So I mean, you got like the most recognizable guy on the Mexican starting pitching is Taiwan Walker. In terms of this, I know like Matt Farley, Alex Carrillo's out there. They have some good lineup, but like I think it'll be a matter of like can the Mexico
Mhm.
lineup get to the Italian pitching staff? I don't know how Italy has the rotation lined up here. You probably want somebody like Aaron Nola lined up for that Mexico game because it's probably the most important game in their pool.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to be biased here. I'm gonna have Italy advance. I do love the pitching. It's sneaky good. The hitting, it's talented, but hitting could be so touch and go game to game. But I really do want to rock with them. They really do seem like a more well-rounded team as opposed to Mexico, as you mentioned. But Mexico, I think, is either going to be really good or a team that sort of disappoints. I think they're around that level regarding that. So I'm going USA, Italy, and you will be going with.
I would probably I'll probably lean Mexico
Okay.
just based on I think the lineup is so good and like in this tournament, pitching like you only had the pitch counts. Like Aaron Nola could be great for 3 innings, and they get the Italian bullpen that could be a problem. So I think like I'll go Mexico to get through.
Okay, Mexico to go through. I am sticking with Italy. Pool C, going to be taking place in Tokyo, Australia, Chinese Taipei, Czech, Japan, Korea. Um, on paper, everyone pretty much just jumps towards Japan and Korea, and rightfully so. think Japan is obviously the top dog in this group for multiple reasons. Korea, always the interesting one regarding this. I think very similar to Pool B. I think you have two clear teams or two or three clear teams that you would select in this one. Are you looking in any direction outside of Korea and Japan or no?
It's very tough because again, this group also you have to remember too the travel factor here because this pod's played in Tokyo. So like there are a lot of these guys who went to spring training out to fly like 12 hours across the world to go play this tournament. So I do think it's a tough spot for some of these like some of these teams that are not as talented as Japan was at home field and for Korea to sort of stick out in here.
Yeah. And Chinese Taipei pretty close odds wise to Korea in terms of advancing to the next round. Australia not too far behind around the plus 280 range. Japan is just super loaded. I just think I wouldn't say this is a golden generation, which is a term that a lot of people like to use when it comes to international sports, but it just really feels like that with Japan, right? Like that to me, very similar to Team USA. It would be stunning if they don't end up winning this group. But yeah, in terms of the odds, where we're going, Korea, Chinese Taipei, Australia, Czech. Like, listen, I'm not going to lie to you and say I know who's on that Czech roster or super talent wise. So for me, I'm going to go kind of basic here. I like Korea to advance. The plus 110 is something I would absolutely take, but we know Chinese Taipei, very respectable country when it comes to the sport. So where are you kind of leaning in regards to that?
Yeah, I would kind of throw out Czechia and Australia. I don't think either of them really has a good shot here. I think obviously I would like lean more like it's tough because like Korea does have a few guys like a big league reps here. Obviously, Jung Ho Lee who plays for the Giants. They have a guy like they actually have Dane Dunning is eligible for Korea. He's playing for them. That's an interesting spot. Some names you recognize too. Hung Jin Roo is still out there throwing for Korea. Like I would lean
Even
Korea.
Jemai Jones too.
Yeah, Jemai Jones also like got over there. So like I would lean Korea. That'd be my hunch.
Yeah, I would lean Korea as well. I think the pitching kind of seems a little bit more reliable. Hyunjin Ryu is another one of those players. It's difficult with this Chinese Taipei as far as their roster goes. I'm gonna have to like take a little deeper dive into it, but there's not really many players that I see on here that I can recognize or even know about. So I would just be lying to the general public about that. Um, Obviously the odds makers see it a little bit differently. Is there a reason why you could see that or would agree to those odds being listed that way?
Well, it's probably based on just like international competition that like the Chinese Taipei group has probably played together some of these international events that we're not paying too much attention to here in continental America. So I would say like that's probably why I'm looking at the DraftKings odds example. They have South Korea plus 110, Chinese Taipei plus 175, and Australia plus 275. And Australia does have, I think, like one of the guys on their team is Travis Vazana, who was the top pick, I think, in the draft a couple of years ago. He's the second base of the future for Cleveland. Like, so I would just say it's like Japan and then whoever finishes second, because like if like anything with Japan, kind of wasting your time. I mean, they minus 5,000 win the group is insane.
Yeah, it's just those like I'd rather them just not list the odds. Sometimes in certain sports they don't even list odds anymore for the favorites in certain groups because they're like we're just wasting everybody's time in regards to that. But yeah, for me, I think I'm gonna go down and keep it very simple. Japan, Korea advance for me. Is that where you're leaning as well?
Yeah, I would go that way.
Okay, going on to Pool D. A little bit more in terms of familiarity here. DR, Israel, Netherlands, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. This is one of the more competitive groups, I would say, of the four. Mike, DR is locked and loaded for this one. Obviously, I think when it comes to this, um, when you're kind of looking at this, DR minus 175 to win the group. Um, to me, that's surprising. I thought they would be at least in the minus 300 range in regards to that. I think Venezuela, again, one of those really sneaky rosters that you could see. And that's one of those things, too, when you watch Major League Baseball and you hear about some of these players that are from there right now, like Ronald Acuna, obviously the biggest of names in regards to that. Um, Is there a team here that's clear cut to you? Do you actually think Venezuela could make some noise in this? I wouldn't be overly shocked by Venezuela. I mean, they have talent on this team.
Yeah, Venezuela on the team is a very interesting group because obviously you mentioned you had the Ronald Acuna thing. You have William Contreras and Salvador Perez behind the plate, which is a great duo. And you figure one of them is probably going to DH half the time. Wilson Contreras, their lineup is almost as deep as the Dominican lineup.
Yeah, it honestly is. Even if you look at the outfield as well, Wilder Abreu, Acuna, Churrillo, I mean, just littered all up and down it. And then again with the catchers, Contreras, Salvador Perez, and they didn't. Francisco Alvarez is not even playing in this, and I know some people are a little bit spotty on him with regards to that. But this lineup is just even the defense in itself too. I think they have multiple options that could play the DH position. That's kind of where we're looking with that. Andres Jimenez feels like the right guy to start at short, right? Would you say with that? Or do you think,
Yeah,
I
I
mean, they
think
have so many options in this infield. There's no like clear cut players outside of you have to start Garcia at third base because there's no way Suarez gets put over there.
yeah, Suarez is probably like in the DH mix with like Salvi and Contreras,
Yeah.
whoever doesn't start catching. But like this is a spot where you look at this team and like they have so many ways they can go for bats that like I think putting Jimenez ninth and having be your clutch defensive shorts, I think is a perfectly fine way to construct the roster.
Yeah, absolutely. And just so some people may not know, there are two legendary players, or former players, excuse me, on this coaching staff. Miguel Cabrera being the hitting coach, and then Johan Santana, one of the pitching coaches. So I just thought that was great with that. Oh, and look, Victor Martinez, assistant manager. I mean, just super loaded talent wise. Obviously, pitching. There are some question marks, but I do see talent here. Ranger Suarez, Eduardo Rodriguez. Listen, it's you could do a lot worse. Sensatella is obviously another name in regards to this. I really do like Venezuela as a whole, just to even advance to the next round. We'll get to some of these other countries here, but your kind of thoughts on those as well that you might want to bring up.
I feel like they're in an interesting spot here. I mean, like in terms of like obviously there's tradition here of great talent in terms of the hitting here. They think they have enough pitching that they have a good shot to get out of this group. It's interesting to see some of these other teams they're dealing with here, but like I just think like the overall like if you're looking for somebody to win the actual tournament here, I think the Dominican's a sleeper.
I agree with you. With DR's roster, which we kind of really just didn't kind of get into, but first of all, I would love to start just with the outfield.
Yeah.
Julio Rodriguez, Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis Jr.
And O'Neill Cruz is a backup there.
Exactly. That's just going to be my next point.
Yeah.
Infield, I mean, just again, you look at it, Geraldo Perdomo, arguably one of the most underrated infielders in all of Major League Baseball. Jeremy Pena, someone who has progressed and gotten better. I'm not fully in love with him like some other people are. Med Rosario, obviously a familiar name. Carlos Santana, a familiar hitter. But Ketel Marte, Manny Machado, Vlad Guerrero Jr., and Junior Caminero. I don't think Caminero will be playing at Steinbrenner Field during this World Baseball Classic, so he might not be as good as some people might think. But I mean, you're right about this. And just real quick thoughts on Austin Wells being a catcher for the DR.
Hey, good for him. You know, he's never going to get in the U.S. mix. So if you have the dual eligibility, why not use it if you want to play in this tournament?
Pitching, do they worry you a little bit? Because we've seen two Mets bullpen guys in here, former Mets bullpen guys, with Brazoban and Gregory Soto. I don't see a dominant starter in here. You could argue that. Well, who would you say? Wandy Peralta might be the. Well, it's actually Christopher Sanchez.
Christopher Sanchez is ridiculous.
Sanchez and then Sandy are top two dogs. I think Brian Bayo is a very underrated pitcher too for the Boston Red Sox. Sevy.
Yep. I think this group, I mean, like, I think they have enough back there. Obviously, you worry about the closer situation, whether it's Duvall or Abner Uribe, probably the two best bets to get the save work back there. But, like, I think they have enough stuff in there that, like, they have the kinds of arms you can shut down a great team. I think, like, I would like to look at some of the. I'm gonna take my odds real quick on the actual overall winner here.
Which we could just go right into for the World Baseball Classic.
Dominican's the third. Like, the USA is minus 110 to win. Dominican is the third choice at plus 450 where I'm looking, and like that's a pretty solid like wager I think to lay down.
Yeah. So again, we'll kind of just go through. I'll go through some of the odds here. So USA minus 110, Japan plus 380, DR plus 410, Venezuela plus 850, Mexico, Puerto Rico. This is where the odds go super long, plus 2200, Puerto Rico plus 2500. Listen, those are teams to win the tournament. Um, Mike Phillips, if you have to pick a winner for the 2026 World Baseball Classic, forget about odds. Who do you think wins the tournament and why?
It should be the U.S. just because they have the deepest roster on paper. They have Paul Skeens sticking around through the whole tournament, who's probably one of the two best pitchers in the sport right now. I would like them better. Scuba was committed to actually stick through the championship rounds, but like I would take them. I like the way they constructed the roster, considering the limits they have. I think it's a good setup here, and like they're nobody other than the DR, nobody's lineup is as deep as theirs.
Yeah, just the thing for me with Team USA is just how they lost last go around. The recruitment that Mark DeRosa and the culture that he's trying to implement within this side, I think speaks volumes as to where they are. Listen, top end wise, pitching, like it's really difficult to argue with what they have here. It's obviously going to come down to guys like Holmes, McClain, and Boyd, as you mentioned, to end up carrying that load. Catching's fantastic, infield just as good. If your weakest player in general are like Terang and the Clements of the world, who are really strong and respectable players, I mean, Goldie over there as well. Roman Anthony, again, I keep saying it almost every single time we talk. I think Roman Anthony is going to finish top 10 in the MVP voting in the American League. Buxton, we just know that sort of power there. Pete Crow, Armstrong, that we're all kind of accustomed to. And then Captain America, Mr. Judge. I do have to ask, what did you think of Aaron Judge's speech if you saw it?
I have not seen it yet. I've heard about the speech,
Okay.
but I've been I think it's like nice for Judge to sort of say, like I'm in this spot. They made me the captain. I was the first guy picked for this team, so good for him to stand up and address the guys because like this is his first time doing this thing. It's very easy for him to like defer some other guys who've been there more, like Bryce. So good to see him take the ownership role.
So Judge is really, everyone kind of knows him as this personality that's just, I guess you could say, for an extraordinary player, he has a rather ordinary personality, which is perfectly fine. He is not like your traditional personality of this leader who is very brash and open and speaking the way that he would. Like, I don't know if you want to toss out an Alex Rodriguez out there. He's more of that, PR dream for a team, right? Like Judge, you never hear anything negative about him. Everyone always speaks so highly of him. I think there's also very similar to Mike Trout, Mike, where there's this moniker and narrative around him that he is this like loser in the big moments and big spots. I would love nothing more than Aaron Judge to shut up so many people in regards to that with this World Baseball Classic tournament, because it just always feels like, regardless if he's as great of a hitter as he is since Barry Bonds, easily the best one since him, he always seems to be in that Shohei Ohtani shadow, just because of how he's been winning with the Dodgers, the MVPs over there, being able to pitch and hit. I think this is kind of, it's not going to define Aaron Judge's career, but this could put him in a different conversations in terms of respect and narratives if he shows up and hits well. As far as the speech goes, listen, I think it was just really who he is. If you're kind of expecting this Al Pacino on any given Sunday speech in the locker room, that's kind of on you.
This is not Herb Brooks' A Miracle.
Exactly. Which is a better example, but Pacino's is a pretty underrated speech in the locker room. But yeah, this team is just loaded. I think it would be a massive disappointment if Team USA did not come away as champions for this. But I totally agree with you as Japan and the DR there. I'd actually take the DR to make the final against Team USA if that's a possibility on how that lines up. Any other final things that you want to talk about there, or you have Team USA winning it all, and that's that?
I have them winning it all. Like I think the if you're looking for the value bet, though, I think the DR is the value bet.
All right. Well, DR value bet. So we'll just go through that one more time. Plus 410 for the DR on FanDuel, plus 380 for Japan, and then minus 110 for Team USA. Yeah, I would definitely say DR for plus 110 there, but you never know. Baseball is a funny sport regarding that. And speaking of funny, Mike, I just found this hilarious. Jurickson Profar failed the drug test. He is suspended for the entire year for the Atlanta Braves. Obviously suspended for half of last season. We discussed it on last episode about how the Braves can ill afford to have a rocky spring training. They've had a very rocky spring training, and it did not get better after this. I did mention and tweet out that Henry Mejia's legacy is being threatened here because if Jurickson Profar gets suspended one more time, Mike, he is banned for life. What was even your initial reaction to it? Because it feels like no matter what he says after this, everyone's thoughts are you an idiot? Like, what are you doing? So your thoughts on Jurickson
Yeah.
Profar being suspended for the 2026 season?
It's one of these things. Like I saw this, like I couldn't help but laugh because I'm like, how dense can you be when you know you're even suspended once to even like be near something that could trigger a suspension here? And like, this is not like 2005 where you could say, oh, like I picked up this something at the pharmacy. I didn't read the bottle. Like you now an age where you make so much money, where you have like your own like personal trainers, you have a nutritional team, like you have a private check, make up money like he does. Like it's like so much money you're basically throwing away. He's like flushing $15 million down the toilet right now in terms of like his
It
guaranteed contract.
And that was the excuse last year from him. I'm like,
Yeah.
I didn't notice, I didn't realize, and then I cost my team this, and then obviously, well, he's out for the entire year. But as far as eligibility for the postseason, even if they were to make it, he would have been, suspended for that last year, similar to what happened with Alvarado over in Philadelphia. Listen, I mean, this is just do better. You're an adult. You're like you said, you're supposed to know what's going into your body. You've been playing in Major League Baseball for so long. He's had one of those interesting careers, right? Because when he was coming up, Mike, he was the prospect in baseball. He was the top dog. Took a little while for him to get into a position where he was very respectable. Basically became a super utility player, had a really good stretch over in San Diego that got him this contract in Atlanta. And it's been nothing but albatross since because of this. I just don't understand how he gets here. I really don't. Jurickson Profar, this is one of the dumbest things that I've ever seen, and he's basically thrown his career down the tube because of it. Any final thoughts on that and how that actually impacts the Braves, the NL East?
Yeah, the Braves obviously, like I'm sure like they were counting on him to be a key part of their lineup here, and they didn't really do a ton to add to it in the offseason here. Now you take him off the board for the whole season. Like that's something like what like you're wondering here, like where are they filling in for this? Like what's the alternative here? Because there's not a ton left on the market you can go grab at this point. Like, are you going to, rely on some of your backups to just play full time? Are you gonna try and make a trade to get a left fielder for a year? Like it's tough to see where they go from here.
It really is, and we talked about it too because their lineup is super talented. But when you have guys like Albies, Riley, and Ronald Acuna Jr., who have battled with injuries, God forbid one of those guys go down, and they also lost Kim already for like a couple months for the year. It's just you're looking at the Braves and saying we could not be getting off to a worse start even before we play a game. Hey, you never know. Like Braves could come out there, start winning ball games in spite of all this, but just a team can only take so many blows, especially
Yeah.
when you're on March 3rd.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list right now of like free agent outfielders who are still out there, and obviously we just old friend Starling Marte from the Mets signed with the Kansas City recently. Some of the top guys on the board who they could look at if they need to get a guy in here quick. Tommy Pham still out there, 38 years old. Max Kepler in right field is an option, maybe moving to left. Old friend Jason Hayward go back for a retirement tour essentially. Hunter Renfroe. It's not a lot out there.
No, there's not a lot out there for the Atlanta Braves. They're going to be struggling as Jurickson Profar has 162 game suspension. Yeah, that's pretty much that for us. World Baseball Classic will be kicking off on March 5th. We'll see what ends up happening with Team USA, the Dominican Republic, and other teams in the tournament in itself. Jurickson Profar suspended for the 2026 season. Any other final thoughts or topics, Mike, before we head on out?
I think one thing people should be aware of here is not publicized very much. People should be aware of this WBC that baseball is going to be the 2028 Olympics. And people don't know this year. The top two teams from the Americas outside the US obviously qualifies as a host. Like their top two teams from the Americas, which is basically everybody outside of Europe and Asia in the WBC or earn qualification to the Olympic tournament. So that's a subplot to watch here for like you and there's only going to be 6 teams in it, which is 3 from the Americas, 1 from Europe, 1 from Asia. You figure it's probably Japan, and 1 from like an intercontinental qualifying tournament here. So there's a lot of pressure on these teams like, DR, Cuba, Puerto Rico to get deep in this tournament and make sure they can be at the Olympics in 2.5 years.
Yep, which will be out in Los Angeles. That could be fantastic. But usually we know that teams really won't send their guys to the Olympics like that, but that could be a fun.
Yeah, there's pressure now. Is a lot of guys think is going to be in LA and not change on. There's a lot of pressure from the players now. They want to do this, and we saw how much the hockey fans love the that return of best on best last year, Four Nations, this year at the Olympics in Milano Cortina. Like you could see the argument here, like, hey, like this is the All-Star break, like time when the Olympics are here. Extend the break a little longer, and we'll just let the pros play in the Olympics.
Yeah, I think that would be fantastic for the sport because it's still so competitive and underrated worldwide. We just went through all those countries that you see through the Americas, Asia, and even Europe to an extent, that there are plenty of players and talented teams out there. Again, everybody can go and follow you at mphillips331 everywhere. Any other content stuff coming out that people should be aware of, Mike?
Yeah, I think this week over on the Just on the Suffering podcast, we talked to U Stadium's Frankie Vetterini about the Jets offseason. A great conversation with him. Star Wars stuff on the Sky Guys podcast. We had, obviously, we caught up to a monumental episode. We revisited Chapter 16 of Mandalorian, which is the big Luke Skywalker return to television. So that one covered there. And college basketball people, keep an eye on that stuff on Fanside because the tournament's coming up here and I have a lot of stuff coming here over there.
I know. There before you know it. Oh, real quick, because I wanted your thoughts on this because I saw it scrolling through. Supposedly, one of the directors or writers from Andor is going to be involved in a Game of Thrones movie. Did you see or have thoughts on that?
Do we know which one? Because
no, not on the top of my head because I'm still behind on Andor. I'm going to have to go pull that up for you. But just in general, what are your kind of thoughts on like a possible even Game of Thrones movie? I didn't read too much in terms of the details with that. I just. For me, just like let it die. I was done after they botched what should have been the greatest show of all time in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I did look here. It's Bud Willimon is the right. He did some of the best stuff on Andor, and he did House of Cards. So like, which obviously was as great before the whole Kevin Spacey of it all sort of like took the wind out of their sails at the end of the show. But like, I feel like you trust him to write it, and like. From what I've heard, as long as like the as DB and David are not involved here, I think you might be better shape for that in terms of writing it.
But I agree with that, but there needs to, I don't know the full extent of it, but if there's source material, then I would feel more comfortable about it because what ultimately ended up ruining the show was because George R.R. Martin still has yet to finish the books and decide on an ending. And
yeah, basically once they got past the books, they were in trouble.
And from what I know from HBO and people who worked there, just at my time at Peacock, I knew people, and they were basically telling me it was a programming issue as well with HBO that they booked too many Sundays and they didn't have enough time to have the proper stretch, because the pacing was obviously one of the bigger issues on top of the writing in itself, was that they were cutting down to less than 10 episodes per season. And with that, you kind of like were forcing storylines and rushing them. So hopefully that's not part of the issue with that. So we'll see. And again, guys, you can always check me out at Martino Puccio everywhere. Again, going to be rocking with U Stadium on our clips from this podcast, and even further than that, getting into more Oscar stuff. I have to catch up with my movies regarding that. We keep seeing, and again, I know the Golden Globes are a little bit different because they split the categories, but all that, Chalamet is a big favorite to win this Oscar. I'm just saying, if Michael B. Jordan's winning one, Wagner Moura is winning one, and then we see Chalamet as well at the Golden Globes. Yeah. This is up in the air. I am going to have to make my own evaluations. All I'm saying is this regarding the Best Actor award. Leo DiCaprio is being so underappreciated as like an overall craft because this role in this movie is fantastic. It's one of his better performances, in my opinion, in the past 10 years or so. And I know he's kind of won an Oscar within that time frame or just outside of that. And for me, I think he's in that space in which we take for granted his greatness. But Sean Penn should easily win it, by the way, for supporting. Do you have still any strong feelings? Have you updated your Oscar watches yet?
I'm going to this week. I'm going to work more on that. Hamnet, thankfully, is going to Peacock on Friday, so that will be one that I wanted to get to. So I don't have to pay to rent it. So
they say Buckley is an all-time performance. So I am really fascinated to see that. So
yeah, there's like 3 that basically I'm going to be able to hopefully get to at time next time we're talking. So I will say in terms of the Leo arguing for Best Actor, I will say in terms of Michael B. Jordan specifically in Sinners, like people, I'm not going to spoil the movie for you, but basically Michael B. Cera's basically played like 4 different characters in one movie. He's just pretty good at all of them. So I think that's something you got to weigh in there.
Michael B. Jordan's fantastic, and I'd be genuinely happy for all of them. I know Ethan Hawke's just kind of
There.
he is so like thrilled to be someone involved in being nominated. Just I don't think Ethan Hawke actually cares to that extent. You saw how happy he was when Brian Aramayo won at the BAFTAs.
Yeah.
And he was talking about his ode to Ethan Hawke and how he spoke at Juilliard and how much that meant to him. Ethan Hawke is one of those guys who's underappreciated across the generation. But you know what? I can never get angry at a Wire character or actor going on to win an Oscar. So I'd be happy with anybody. So we'll see what ends up happening there. So Martino Pucci, I'm Mike Phillips. So long, and see you guys next week.